Morning, all. All right, so today we're going to start off with Columbus. There's another logo that doesn't quite fit on the board. Hey, what are you gonna do? So for the Columbus Blue Jackets, this is a year likely of building things back up. We've watched star player after star player leave Columbus, and now we're to the point where, yeah, this is going to look a lot like a rebuild, because kind of what it is. So for Columbus, a team that as recently as 2 years ago finally looked like they were breaking through, now we're looking at a team that is very likely to miss the playoffs. So last season, things kind of bottom out for them in the Central. Their power play 15.4%, which is 27th. The reason for acquiring Laine, in large part, to fix the power play. Penalty kill 79%, which was 21st overall, so that was not a stellar penalty kill either. The goals for, they were 29th overall in the NHL with 134. Goals against, they were 25th in the NHL with 184 goals against. So allowing 50 more goals than you score over a 56-game season, it makes a lot of sense that this team wasn't playing games that were of consequence for themselves anyways for quite a while before the season came to an end. Now we look at their drafting record since 2015. In 2015, they drafted Werenski, 8th overall. They then drafted Gabriel Carlsson at 29th. They drafted Stenlund at 58th and Gavrikov at 159th. So nice find with Gavrikov at 159. In 2016, Dubois was drafted at 3rd. Peak was drafted 34th. So, of course, Dubois has moved on to Winnipeg. Peak is still here. 2017, Texier was their first pick at 45th overall. I still think Texier's got some offensive upside there. Yeah, I still believe until it's over. I still believe. Bemstrom, 117th overall, is where he was drafted. Pretty good pick right there. 2018, they drafted Liam Foudy at 18th. Another young player that I think has shown signs. In 2019, they only had 3 picks in the entire draft, and the first pick was at 104. Now, the debate since 2019 has been, was it worth it going all in at the deadline? So doing everything they could, and they did finally win a round for the first time in their history, but was it worth it long term? And that's a question that we'll be asking, I would think, for a while. 2020, they drafted Chinahov at 21st overall. And this past draft, they actually had 3 first-round picks. They had 9 overall, but 3 in the first round. So nicely played. And we'll see whether or not those 3 picks end up in their lineup. Likely not this year, but maybe next year, right? So, exits from this team. Seth Jones, the most public, big exit. He was not going to sign an extension. And due to that, they said, all right, well, we'll move him. And they did. He's gone to Chicago. Del Zotto moves on. He's off to Ottawa. Atkinson, of course, was traded to Philly. Grigorenko, I believe, has gone back to the KHL. And, of course, the tragic passing of Kivlenieks means that we do have a change in goal. But I do get the feeling, I still think Kivlenieks would have been the pick for Seattle from Columbus. What Seattle did instead was they drafted Bayreuther, who they didn't then sign, and goes back to Columbus as an unrestricted free agent. So the new faces in the lineup, I like the pickup of Sean Kuraly, but I have to say there should be an asterisk when Boston has a bottom 6 guy who looks pretty good in Boston and he goes somewhere else. The track record hasn't been great. And I don't know if it's Boston's system that makes the bottom 6 guys look a little better than what they are, or it's just something in Boston works for these guys. We'll see if Kuraly can break that trend, right? And it's interesting, too, because Riley Nash was one that I thought the same thing kind of happened with him. And of course, he was in Columbus. Now Kuraly's in Columbus. Voracek, also back with the Columbus Blue Jackets after an extended period of time with Philly. Jake Bean, Adam Boqvist. I like the additions on the blue line. I understand it was at the cost of Seth Jones. And Ronaldo, who's been brought in a little bit of muscle, who will bounce into this lineup, you would have to think probably at least once this year. There's got to be at least one instance where they say, all right, we're going to bring in Ronaldo. So over their last 3 years, 2018, 2019, they were 47, 31, and 4. Actually 5th in the Metro, but they were going for it. And in the playoffs, they lost in the second round against Boston after the shocking upset sweep over Tampa Bay. Remember when Tampa Bay was that team that everybody said, oh, they're not going to win a cup, not with this core, and then they won 2. So Columbus was the team that took him out in 2019 and turned him into a punchline. But since then, it's been a downhill trend for Columbus. 33, 32, and 15 in 2019-2020 for fourth in the Metro. And they lost in the first round against Tampa after scoring an upset win in the play-in round against Toronto. Now in 2021, no playoffs with a record of 18, 26, and 12, which made them seventh in the tough Central Division. And so this year, they're back in the Metro. I don't think that necessarily means their fortunes improve, especially with the appearance that there's a rebuild going on here. So we look at their forward group. Laine has to bounce back, right? $7.5 million, one more year, kick the can down the road. He has to bounce back this year. Roslovic played very well after getting into Columbus. Roslovic, solid center. Is he a number one center? Probably shouldn't be, but again, for Columbus, we'll see what kind of changes might still get made, right? Bjorkstrand, excellent season for him last year. Nyquist, I have an asterisk next to Nyquist because people may have forgotten Nyquist is in Columbus. I didn't play at all last season. If he's healthy and he can play this year, that should make a difference. But at this stage, I do wonder, after a full year off, what kind of Gustav Nyquist we'd get and whether or not he's going to be able to do the job they're going to ask of him. Boone Jenner, Jacob Voracek, of course, as well. Voracek, we'll see if he can bring about a point per game into Columbus. A lot of those are going to be assists. Texier, Corrali, Bemstrom. Bemstrom, I think, has that next level. Eric Robinson, Stenlund, Foodie. Foodie, I think, belongs higher up in the lineup than lower down, and I'm not sure who he pushes out to get that ice time. But I think for Foodie to excel, he needs more ice time. Hoffman, Domi, who of course has had, injury issues here and there, and of course there's other issues we talk about with Domi when it comes to the consistency and production. Production's become a major thing. This coming season, full 82 games, we'll see if he bounces back. He's young enough to have that bounce back year, right? Fix Wolanski, Gerby. Nathan Gerby always jumps into the lineup for a handful of games during any given season. Ronaldo, Gauntz, Brendan Gauntz has gone there, so if you're a Canuck fan watching this, that's where Gauntz went. And Dunn. Dunn is on the list. He played, I believe, 6 games for them last year. Now, on the blue line, it's going to be interesting to see how this works because a lot of it's going to depend on the young guys they brought in. If the young guys excel, they're going to look genius for the Seth Jones deal because you've got Werenski, who has a brand new contract that kicks in next year that makes him a lot of money. We'll see how that pressure works for him and if it helps his game or if it hinders or what it does. Boquist will probably play more in Columbus than he was going to in Chicago, and he's very young. And I think the raw tools are there for a top 4/top 2 defenseman. Gavrikov, Peak, and Jake Bean, who now will get an opportunity as well. We'll see how he does. And Kukan. As Kukan should be rounding out the top 6. Harrington's there. Harrington's been productive at times when he's been able to get in the lineup. Lettinen did re-sign after going unrestricted. Turns around, goes right back into Columbus. Gabriel Carlson and Bayreuther. There's a lot of decent talent there, decent enough that I think, I think their blue line is going to be better. Maybe they improve on that 25th, that goals against that they had this past season. But a lot of that's going to depend on Merzlikins and Korpisalo. Now, Merzlikins, his numbers are pretty good. Korpisalo's have been a little more towards the mediocre end over the last, I'll say, couple of seasons. But we know Korpisalo can do it. We know he can. We've seen that. And Cam Johnson's the number 3. Now, Korpisalo's name comes up a lot in trade rumors. I thought about putting an asterisk next to him because it still feels like he may get moved, but it hasn't happened yet. Prospect side of things, Yegor Chinakhov, who should be coming into their lineup. I even forgot the H in his name here, so that makes it a completely different name. Although I think I've seen it spelled both ways. I'm going to try to always remember the H here, because without the H, I don't think it works. But yeah, because it's Shinahov is how I've heard it pronounced more often than not. I know that'll probably change when he comes to North America, though. Kent Johnson, Cole Sillinger, 2 of the top prospects that they drafted this year. I don't see... Now, neither of them have signed their entry-level contract as of yet. I don't think that necessarily happens. And then you have Stanislav Svozil, who has signed his entry-level contract and maybe finds his way into a few games this year as well. But yeah, for Columbus, it feels like their better days now are ahead. Once again, if you're a Columbus fan, that may feel sort of like broken record talk. Because for over 20 years, you've been waiting for a team that can be a cup contender. 2019, they gave you a glimpse, and then it's gone again, right? So the one thing, too, that's not on the board that is worthy of note is with John Tortorella gone and a new voice behind the bench, does that change their overall success? Does that mean they get better? Does that mean they get worse? And I think, we'll probably see a bit of a jump in their record initially. We usually see that when there's a new voice behind the bench. It's about whether or not you can maintain that. Whether or not past the first 20 games, that continues to be the case, right? So their Stanley Cup odds are right now at 100 to 1. They opened at 66 to 1. My guess is then the trades took place and free agency happened and they've taken a nosedive in their Stanley Cup odds. They have not won a cup. And if you're Jarmo Kekalainen, that's your role, your job. Your job is to get this team to Stanley Cup level. Every GM in the league, honestly, should be trying to get their team to a Stanley Cup position. Like, they should be contenders and all this. So, if a team's spinning its wheels, it can get more frustrating. Because sometimes it feels like they're just trying to hang on. And in some cases, with Columbus in 2019, I think going all in when they did. I mean, at the time, I had some questions. Coming out of it, still had some. I still have them now. At some point when we're further away from the 2019 run, we can take a look and say, okay, so the draft picks that were traded, the players that came in, all this, was this all worth it for Columbus, right? So their schedule for October, it's pretty busy. They've got 8 games. And remember, they don't play till the 14th of October, so that's 8 games over 17 days. They're at home against Arizona on the 14th to open up their season. So that is a winnable first game. Then they're against Seattle at home on the 16th. So they have 2 games at home, Arizona and Seattle. Those should be winnable games. Maybe they get off to that 2-0 start. Then they go to Detroit on the 19th. They could go 3-0. So you can see where I'm going with this. This is a team that could very well have articles being written about maybe this year's going to be better than we thought. Then they're at home against the Islanders on the 21st, at home against Carolina on the 23rd, and at home against Dallas on the 25th. They could lose all 3 of those games, and then the articles a week after are, never mind. So on the 29th, they're then going to New York to play the Rangers, and on the 31st, they play the New Jersey Devils in New Jersey. So it's not a horrible schedule to start off, and it is possible that with these teams that they're playing, they could be 4-4 or 4-3-1 after those first 8 games, and keep it close. And this is one of those teams that if they can keep it close and stay competitive, if their goaltenders can become world beaters again, maybe we're all, underestimating them. I've got them at 8th in the Metro, but there are enough fascinating changes in the lineup that I really want to see how this comes together for them. Because I would like to see, I always cheer for underdogs anyways, but I'd like to see Columbus turn it around. I think that would be nice. I do. One thing about being a fan of Vancouver, for me anyways, personally, is that I've always felt a certain amount of kinship with other fan bases and teams that haven't had any success either. So there's that. But, maybe what Columbus is doing now and the building they're doing now and getting 3 draft picks in this draft, maybe we'll look back and say that was the start of something big. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.